to Canvas, the Niger-Delta Roundtable, where I discuss weekly the future of this region blessed humongously with hydrocarbon resources. We give time to reflecting on topics relevant to the development of the Niger-Delta and the people. And this episode is no different. I'm here once again to focus on how to take this region to a more promising future. And as you might already know, the program is sponsored by the operator of the NNPC SPDC Total Energies Archive Joint Venture, a Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria Limited, headquartered here in Port Harcourt. Thank you for joining us. I'm Adedayo Ilushakin. The topic for this edition: Niger-Deltans Can Develop Niger-Delta. Now, this episode is dedicated to exploring the diverse and dynamic region of the Niger-Delta, discussing its challenges, celebrating its successes, and envisioning a brighter future for all its inhabitants. The Niger-Delta is a region rich in natural resources and cultural heritage, but it also faces significant challenges such as environmental degradation, economic disparities, and other social issues. And while external support and government initiatives are essential, the true power to transform the Niger-Delta lies within its people. In this episode, we'll explore how Niger-Deltans can take charge of their destiny and drive the development of their region. We'll be diving into the crucial role that the people of the Niger-Delta play in the development of their region, from personal responsibilities like education and entrepreneurship to community engagement and environmental stewardship. We'll explore how each of us can contribute to building a prosperous and sustainable Niger-Delta. We'll also discuss the importance of advocacy and leadership in driving positive change. So let's get started and discover how we can all make a difference. Again, the topic of this edition of Canvas is Niger-Deltans Can Develop the Niger-Delta. My guest is a true Niger-Deltan and has earned every right to be called that. Eugene Abels. Eugene Abels is the Executive Director of the Extra Step Initiative here in Port Harcourt. Eugene, hello. Welcome to Canvas, the Niger-Delta Roundtable.
Thank you for having me. And thank you, Shah, for making this platform possible.
When I introduced you as a true Niger-Deltan and someone who has earned that right, you're smart. I don't know if the cameras caught that or if in the edits that will be shown. But why? I mean, really, I doubt that anyone would disagree with that attribution.
No, none without. I hail from two oil-producing communities. Finima, that was relocated for where LNG is currently built, and Basambri, where you have the Nembe Creek Shell, has the major operations going there in Bayelsa State.
But does simply, in the context in which I've used the expression, does simply emanating from some region or part of the Niger-Delta make you a true Niger-Delta?
In context of your conversation, my track record and the track record of my organization can be validated in that conversation as a true Niger-Delta because of the things we've been involved in terms of advocacy and in terms of human capacity development. I know the aspects of me you don't know that you hear that.
Speaking of your organization,
yes,
what do you do at the Extra Step Initiative?
Basically, to compel public officers and public institutions to optimize international best practices. Yeah, which we are thrown under the bus in Nigeria in every context of our life, and that's where we will find ourselves.
All right. Let's delve right into this conversation then. Once again, a topic: Niger-Deltans can develop Niger-Delta, and we're talking a lot about development today, especially as it concerns the Niger-Delta. Let's create a baseline of sorts at first. Let's start with what the situation is, as against what it should be. So, what is your assessment of the level of development in the Niger-Delta currently?
The Niger-Delta is a microcosm of Nigeria, and Nigeria is a microcosm of Africa and the Black race. And we've not done well. We're not where we're supposed to be. Yes, we're beyond the times when we had adolescents and British teenagers and traders running the country that laid the foundation. And and gave us pointers, which has generated billions of dollars. And if we compare, if we do a peer review with the likes of recent countries like Rwanda, Singapore, United Arab Emirates, who've not done well. We're currently mediocre as far as I'm concerned. Don't forget, in 1982, when I was a year one student, brandishing How Europe Underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney, the concept of development, the definition of development was just a one sentence. Today, it's a whole paragraph because it's all encompassing: environment, human capacity development, accountability. A whole lot of things have been put into that single word development. If we decide to measure, we're in all facets of our existence now in Nigeria. We are not what we were in the 60s. I told somebody recently, my generation has failed the nation. And if you want to pride yourself that your budget, your national budget is 47 trillion for 2025, convert it to dollars and compare it to the last 5 years, you see that it's diminished. You're not even half of what the fire department or the police department in New York has. And if you think you've done well, when the country was given to you, as at 1982, the exchange rate was about 75 naira to the dollar. Today, where are you? So the clear point, I believe the statistics are there. And 60-something years after, you don't even know how many you are. So every statistics you have brought for us concerning the people and your planning is definitely going to be faulty because you don't have correct census figures. So we are no longer the world is no longer telling you to invent. The world is just telling you copy and paste. And you're unable to do that. You've not done well. I apologize to your generation. We're responsible. My generation is responsible. We got the best. I've not been able to use it properly.
In your answer, you said that the Niger Delta is a macrocosm of Nigeria,
yes,
of Africa. You mentioned
of
the black
Nigeria.
race.
Nigeria is that of Africa.
Okay.
Yes, and can remember the battles of the likes of Marcus Garvey and yes, my granddad, as at 1940, had gotten his PhD in law in Ohio. So he relocated with the likes of Nkrumah to the Gold Coast. Yeah, because that was the hub of intellectual militancy, if we said that in Continental, when they were fighting against colonialism, liberation movement, and so on. So, so there were standards, there were expectations that if we take over and if there's money, ABC will be better than the United Kingdom, will achieve this. Don't forget, you didn't find the oil. They did. What have you done?
Once again, you referenced that it is the Niger Delta linked to Nigeria, linked to Africa, is a macrocosm of the black race. Do you subscribe to the notion that some hold that something is inherently wrong with the black race?
I want us to take responsibility. And once you don't know, Socrates says, the man who knows his problem is a strong man. If you don't acknowledge that you have a problem, you're definitely the problem. You have a whole big job. But once you can identify your weaknesses, you begin to address them. So we've been blaming colonialism, we've been blaming slavery, we've blamed everything. It is 62, 65 years after. With billions of dollars, you are still blaming. Rwanda has come and accomplished it. You pay over $2,000 to go, and what do you see in Rwanda and in the north? When in social sciences we call developed countries the northern countries. What do you see there? Order, rule of law, development. People attempt to push things to frontiers. Don't forget that, I don't know if you were around there in 1982, we were counting 9 planets. Today, we no longer, nobody's saying that, we're just saying that there are several solar systems, several billions of planets and so on. People did that work for you to know what's happening. So it's not the cliche that you don't determine where you're born, but it's your responsibility to overcome those challenges. Every generation have their challenges. Do you know what it meant? That the cold, the famine, the fire in London, and all of that made people to climb a wooden boat with something like a bed sheet and travel thousands of miles when some of us thought the earth was flat to come here and occupy you. Have you changed? What educational system are you running? In 1982, when I got admitted in the University of Port Harcourt, I had to read political science and administration. My cutoff point was I had to score 265 to be admitted. If you didn't do anything less than 350, you don't even look at the building concerning law and the medical department. Today, you're admitting students with 150 max, 120. When the world has moved on and they're dealing with STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, they've added X to it, meaning the creative arts. Who do you blame?
Where should the Niger Delta be, or where ought the Niger Delta to be in terms of development?
The Niger Delta, with the amount of money, let me show you, that has come into the system, that comes into the system, into the ecosystem, we should be able to compete the likes of Dubai. How many are we? 9 states. How many? The whole of Rivers State, less than 2.5 million people. So money is not the issue. So you have money at the statutory allocations, you have from taxes, you have from internal generated revenues, you have things like ecological funds, you have funding from the federal agencies, you have funding to the local governments, you have funding to the states, and you have budgets in the IOCs for community development and so on. You have intervention agencies like the Presidential Amnesty Program, which is for human capacity development. You have from the Niger-Delta Development Commission. Until recently, you have from Ministry of Niger-Delta, you have the Niger-Delta River Basin Authority. So it's not for want of agencies of funding in the region. In all of this, then you have support from multilateral organizations and so on, which comes in. In all of this, what do we have to show? I don't see anything. The average politician doesn't want you to think, so you will be mentioning projects. What does projects mean? You know, we've said this before. It's procurement. If you're procuring, if you're putting up projects, I want to see clear thinking that this is the plan. This is where it's going to take you to. This road I'm building is supposed to give me ABC. It is not for lack of something to do that when festive seasons come, you see the Western nations are hoping that a retail, like this Christmas, they were hoping that sale of chocolate in America will hit $3 billion. Somebody has studied this, somebody's planning it, somebody's hoping it happens because it has a value chain. And it's, if it happens, it affects the value chain and it helps the economy, it impacts the people positively. Yes, there's a health downside of it, but there's a whole lot of benefit that comes in, which also affects us for those parts of the country that grow cocoa. So where we are, back to it, is that I think it is time for us to stop and begin to think right.
If the Niger Delta is a macrocosm of Nigeria, Nigeria is a macrocosm of Africa, reflective in some ways of the Black race as well, can the Niger Delta then truly develop, or can Niger Deltans truly develop Nigeria? The Niger Delta, pardon me, in spite of the situation in the larger scheme of things vis-a-vis Nigeria and even Africa for that matter, considering where Nigeria is, can the Niger Deltans then create a Dubai, create a Rwanda, a Singapore, a UAE in the Niger Delta, considering once again it still remains a macrocosm of Nigeria.
If we continue the way we are operating, whether it be at Niger-Delta level or at the national level, monies will just come to spend. Right now, what is the current trend we've seen in the last 20 years, state capture? We will not be able to develop the Niger-Delta if we continue. For instance, let's take your budget. First of all, I've told you that you don't know how many your population. Meanwhile, if I geotag you, I can geotag Port Harcourt and tell you how many houses are here. In less than 2 days, I'll do it. You're using Google now. It tells you hear the lady telling you, turn left. You're about to attribute it. It tells you if there's traffic. You didn't do it. Somebody did it. It's available. So if you continue to, first of all, you don't know how many you are. So your planning is faulty. We're not even talking about, then two, the budgeting. You're budgeting as if you are an occupation force, whether it be at the federal, state, or local government, in the sense that you sit, once you are appointed in the office, you assume you know what Bonnie needs. You don't go and sit down with the people and find out what, or conduct a survey, have a conversation, make it public, so you address their top 3 needs. So you think they need an express road, a 4-lane road. Meanwhile, what they might just need might be water, which will reduce their cost in health. So we need to change the way we budget and bottoms-up approach. Then when these budgets are even done and funds are appropriated to them, have you ever had there's no performance measurement. Don't forget that the Constitution, the laws are there. The Constitution clearly provides for a constituent assembly at the local government level. At the state, you have the House of Assembly. At the federal level, you have the National Assembly, the legislature. These people are supposed to review, check for budget performance, and so that those who were running the budget can account for why they performed well or why they didn't perform well. So if there are deficits or there are areas or gaps to be filled, and it can be explained. And there's particularly what concerns organizations from the EU like Shell is the inclusiveness of the people and the community, so that the community can also know what has happened, why it happened, or what didn't happen, and they set new targets. But this is not what's happening. It's not happening. If you've seen it happen, budgets have been passed all over the world, running to billions of dollars or naira. Have you seen any of those, whether it be local government, state, or federal, that the legislature at the 3 levels of government have queried any of them for purposes of performance? No. So if you don't query it, if you don't review it, and you pass the budget in less than 24 hours, it means you don't believe in that document. There's no inclusiveness of the people. There's no review of it. We cannot do there's no room for a cost-benefit analysis for what is being projected. So there's no transparency even in your budgeting process. And that's the foundation of everything you're doing, which is supposed to drive development. So when you have that clear gap of inefficiency and mediocrity, it leads to state capture. And when that happens, the development for the people will not happen. What will happen is the aspirations of a particular office holder is what will be achieved, whether it be at the local government, at the state, or the federal level.
Now, you referenced a while ago that we are prone to playing the blame game.
Yes.
As a country, as a race even, we blame colonialism, we blame the Europeans.
Other than ourselves.
Exactly. So bringing it down to the Niger-Delta, I mean, I've heard on occasion, or maybe make that many occasions,
yes,
some Niger-Deltans, or lots, depends on your perspective, or many, blame other persons as well, other sections of the country, and there are some terms that commonplace when these conversations come up, terms like marginalization and the likes, you know. Have Niger-Deltans, have we done all that we can as Niger-Deltans should develop the Niger-Delta such that we can then sit back, fold our arms and say, it's no longer in our hands. It's not up to us any longer.
Yes, it's in your...
We've done all that we can.
Yeah.
So the reason we're not developing is not us, it's them.
Yes. Mm-hmm. We haven't. There was a push for it, which led to the things like the Kayama Declaration by the John National Youth Congress, IYC. The Kayama Declaration, when you had intellectuals like the late Toronto Douglas and likes of them there. Like I asked them, I said, without demeaning you, have you reviewed that document? Have you added one paragraph more to, because the circumstances have changed. You know, you've gotten the NDDC, you've gotten the Mission of Niger-Delta. Now, I think we've gotten, there's a whole new thing happening now. Have the circumstances changed? Yes. Have we done a review? No. Have we done to reflect our current realities? No. So that's at the youth level. So, but most times now, what you find from a pressure group like that, which was advocating for the rights of the people, environmental improvement, and trying to compel the IOCs and government to do the things that are right in the hydrocarbon sector. Today, you find out that most people who fight to become officials in that group end up being, they fight their way to become special advisors to the in government. So the people who they're supposed to supervise or superintend over, they become loyal to them. It's a Nigerian thing. Loyalty is a Nigerian thing. Loyalty in Nigerian parlance means that I work for you and you tell me what to do, even though I'm supposed to be your supervisor. So where we are, it's the past 20 years now, we've gone flat. It's gone flat. The conversations are changed, because you can't come now as a Niger-Delta person and talk about discrimination. No, you have. I can show you, if I can do figures, if you give me another chance, and you'll be amazed how much money has come in. On in the states in the region, none of their budgets are less than 200, 300 billion naira. Yes, and you just be hearing projects. You hardly say connect that these are the things we want, that these are the things. I doubt if you've heard that. I've resumed office. I've done an audit. These are the assets we inherited. These are the liabilities we inherited. And we'll sort out these liabilities, convert them to assets. When we do A, B, C, D, we have identified your problem. For instance, the UNEP report on the Ogoni cleanup, it's over 10 years old. When that report came out, and now that report is obsolete. I had spoken on several fora. You do not wait. The Nigeria is an investor in the hydrocarbon industry. Nigeria owns 60% of it. The IOCs are business people. They pay you royalties and they pay you taxes. So I shouldn't wait for them to lead my conversation. Like I've said, that it will not be out of place if the groups, the Niger-Delta people, say, look, why don't we compel our local government, the state government, compel agencies like NESA to come together. Once you have come together, multilateral organizations will become interested. Say, look, we want to do a review on that report and do a performance review on it and juxtapose the current realities. There's been a proliferation of non-state actors in the region, which led to we leading the Stop the Suit campaign in 2016 and 2018. I was a major player in that mobilization. Yes, the Stop the Suit campaign was because there was a spike in the activities of non-artisanal refining of stolen crude oil in the region. So when that report was bettered, they even set up an agency called HiPrep. We have not seen a public accountability of what part of the report has been achieved. Recently, Mossab did the anniversary, and I was listening to some of their spokesmen talking about condemning, talking about how HiPrep has not properly been run. And so it's not about who occupies the position, but there should be a deliberateness. Our needs, our problems are before us. They're in plain sight. So what have we done to do differently? I like to always get out of the box in my conversations. And one of the things I've said that, can we just acknowledge, say these people pass us. They have the resources. It's not just having resources. We also have resources. But they have this will, or they're compelled by their home countries and the laws that govern the European Union, where most of the funding comes from, that they must do things at a certain level and in certain perspective. So why can't I collaborate with them? If I have to, I know you might find this a bit offensive. If I have to sign a non-disclosure in the sense that, like, information or data availed me will not be used against your interests as long as it does not break the law. I can have that collaboration for us so that we have data readily available to tell us where we are. For the past 10, 12 years, I've been screaming that today Rivers State was the first state to have a frequency modulated radio station. Then after the little one then in Nigeria was at 2 Martin Street, FRC2. And today we have about 27 of them. And do you know what it will mean if we collaborate with them and say we begin to provide air monitoring stations? They're not expensive. Just as you're announcing weather, you're announcing air quality announcements, fundamental things. But we don't have data. I don't have to wait for the IOCs because every department, every local government has a Department of Environment. Everything you find at the federal level, it's also at the local government level. So we as the people, can we have a conversation with our councillors, constituent assembly members, and local government chairman? Can we have a conversation like the INC, the Joint National Congress, or Baka Igwere groups, Yes, and if you look at Abia State is now part of the Niger-Delta, or the Honaise group, all of these pressure groups, all of us can sit at the table and create and identify what our issues are and deliberately create a system to make these things change. I would recommend that you read Bushpats. It's a book by a British adolescent who was managing the affairs there around Rivers State. There were no roads. People sat down to make those things possible. Today you've inherited those basics. So what are we doing with them forward? In the way we're currently going, we are not going to progress beyond where we are.
It is Canvas Niger-Delta Roundtable. On this edition, we are discussing Niger-Deltans Can Develop the Niger-Delta. My guest is Eugene Abels. We go for a break. We will return in a moment. The conversation continues. Please stay with us.
Our yellow and black markers indicate pipeline and flow line right-of-way boundaries. Your activity could impact on the buried high-pressure hydrocarbon pipelines and flow lines, leading to possible leaks and explosion. Please keep off. Do not engage in sand mining or any form of excavation, pipeline vandalism, oil theft, and bush burning within pipeline and flow line right-of-way. Do not farm, trade, or locate any business on pipeline and flow line right-of-way. It is against the law to apportion land, sell, or build on pipeline and flow line right-of-way. Maintain a setback distance of at least 30 meters or about 100 feet from the right-of-way boundaries always. We care for your safety and that of the environment.
This message is brought to you by the Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria Limited, SPDC, operator of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPC Limited, Total Energies, and Ajib Joint Venture.
Welcome back. Still Canvas, the Niger-Delta Roundtable, brought to you by SPDC. I'm Dio, and the conversation continues. Thanks for staying with us. Niger-Deltans Can Develop the Niger-Delta is the topic of our discourse on this edition of the podcast. My guest is still here, Director, Extra Steps Initiative, Eugene Abels. Eugene, welcome again.
Thank you.
Community involvement. Whilst know that, I imagine there's a lot we can do as individuals, and maybe we'll get to it at some point. But let's start on this note, or continue on this note. Community involvement. How can community involvement drive development in the Niger-Delta region?
It's good that you brought this part of it. You remember our 6% supposedly our supposed population. It's the young people, and I doubt you've heard any of them engage in these conversations because all their thinking has been reduced to it's all about getting a job, survival. And now a lot of them are operating on the cyberspace. Either they're doing crypto, the betting, drugs, and other things. So Nigeria that really doesn't concern them. Why do I say this? I remember when back in the 80s, when Nigeria, if you asked any of us then, we could tell you that Nigeria was non-aligned. We explained as young people, as kids, we could explain that we're non-aligned and we're part of the frontline states, and that we must get Zimbabwe, Rhodesia, which is Zimbabwe, must get Angola, we must get South Africa independent. That was a national conversation. It went down to the communities. Everybody was involved. Even as late as up to 1985, when Babangida wanted to take IMF loan, it was a national conversation. Every beer parlor, every space, market women are discussing the Brendan Woods conversation. That's why that government, instead of saying that they took the IMF loan, they now came up with the structural adjustment program. But since I know you've been in Port Harcourt for a while, close to over 10 years, have you heard our young people having that conversation in the city, in the metropolis? So, like the problems of the region, how can we deal with the environment? How can we deal with the problems concerning unemployment and underemployment? Are you having those kind of conversations? They're not there. So if it doesn't happen in the metropolis of Port Harcourt, Yenegua, Warri, Asaba, Uyo, is it in Ikotekpene or in Finima or in Opobo that those conversations will not happen? No. But I think whenever they say when you wake up, it's your morning. And I've said that if we realize that we have a problem, there's a need for us to begin to insist or encourage this kind of conversations to go beyond the beef between Burna Boy and Chief Priest and how much Davido and Wizkid, who has more money. But to begin to deal with why is our ecosystem like that? Is the architecture adequate? Are we doing the proper things? What is the kind of conversation? We need to begin to change the narrative so that the conversations must include the people. So up to the market woman, just as back in the day, she could tell you that this IMF thing will not go agree because every country where they don't do them, we never see anyone we don't get out of them. They had to go and research it. Don't forget, there was no internet as at that time. Now with the internet and Internet of Things, we can have better conversations. But who would drive it?
Speaking of who would drive it, and still on the subject of community.
Yes.
Besides, your advocacy for a lot more youth involvement in, forming communities and being involved in these conversations. Yeah. We do have communities existing, whether the ones formed geographically or along ethnic lines, or even incorporated ones as well. You mentioned Ijaw Youth Council, you mentioned Bako and several other ones. Yes. We do have various communities existing already.
Including those in the cyberspace too.
Exactly. So we do have communities, don't we?
But how do we get the people? Because the quality of people they see in terms of leadership are not driving those conversations. Our conversations are more of too much politics, very little development, very little, most of the conversations do not have depth. Don't forget that you don't even debate to run for office. So if those who's about to manage your resources and lead, the conversation cannot debate. So what are the issues will the public talk about in the communities? Those days when the elections were coming, we used to cram or like write down the things, the grammar. We look forward to the debate between Zik, Awolowo, Waziri, Maitama Sule. That was my idol because those were the boys, the guys who went to Cambridge, Ojukwu, the late Ojukwu. Because after the campaigns, you learn one or two words. And some pseudo-French was like bourgeoisie. But if you don't debate the basics about, your leadership selection process now has thrown away conversations. Debates are conversations. Yes. So that where the issues that are afflicting that community are available. Sometimes they might not be affliction. Sometimes you're looking at your peer. You're doing a peer review. I say, look, we would like to look like I want to run for this office because I want to take you people to go to this level. That we as a state, who aspire that our balance sheet, we're going to move it from A to make sure that at the end of 2025, it will be bigger than the balance sheet of Shell. Because we're no longer going to depend on statutory allocations, but we're going to create value chains that will enable us to drive money. So what happened in Lagos with Dirty December? And the amount of figures that have been rolled out. I don't know if you've seen that publication. Yes, with Dirty December 2024. Yes, yesterday night I was watching Wale Oke of Al Jazeera. She was being interviewed on channels, and she was part of Dirty December. These are deliberate things. They're not spiritual. If you don't lay the foundations, if you don't compel deliberate actions and thoughts, the community inclusiveness will not happen. The conversation in our communities, whether it be in the metropolitan centers to the villages, it's about survival. It's about anything that the end justifies the means. No quality, no content.
Environmental concerns are a major issue in the Niger Delta. Whilst we do want and yearn for the Niger Delta that's thriving economically and in other spheres as well, environmental development is much desired also. And still speaking community-wise, what should our communities be doing to improve the environmental situation in the Niger Delta?
Our communities should stop looking at compensation and begin to look at the consequences of these actions. I remember the day the fishermen we had a roadshow and on the environment during this, when we were campaigning against the suit. We were demonized when we started. Eventually, everybody became a campaigner, including the last administration. They eventually started to stop the suit too. And the fishermen came when they said that we can't even teach our children to swim because of the pollution caused by the natives. Should I use that word? What do I call? We, the indigenous people, the owners of the land. They can't teach their children to swim. So if they can't swim, how can they fish? So everybody will sew a tight shirt and want to be a special advisor. Everybody will face politics. So the other things that happen and those resources which are available there, nobody's going to do that. So it's going to damage. I left Port Harcourt at the time because of pollution, because of those of us in OGRA were suffering it. I wasn't getting well. I had to leave. Yeah. So you have that. But I want to use the opportunity to say, for those who run our hydrocarbon sector, and for even other sectors, the multinational or transnational organizations, I think it is time for them to also change their modus operandi. That it will help, because all the questions you've asked here, if you seek foreign funding from Europe today, there are about 52 questions you need to answer, which will include community inclusiveness, women's rights, child labor, discrimination, provision of water, sanitary availability, sanitation, meeting sanitation needs of the community, even in providing internet service. All of these are requirements, and they're done for a reason, so that the ecosystem can be clearly measured if an operator is doing that, which is that. So I would like to appeal that I'd like to appeal to the IOCs, like our sponsors here, that particularly it would be nice if their community relations budgets are made public. And when they make them public, that before they create the budgets, that they sit down with the communities to have a bottoms-up approach in that conversation. I know a lot of people's eyes will be going towards how much can we push to ourselves and contact. No, but to situate it, yes, within what best practices are. Best practices are the rules governing the European Union, where the funding or the financiers come from. So if that happens, you will not have the kind of imbroglio you're having in FINIMA, whereby FINIMA, a community that was relocated, the staff of LNT will go to National Assembly that said that FINIMA is not a host community, contrary to the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the PIB.
Advocacy.
Yes.
You talk about your organization, the Extra Step Initiative. You're involved in advocacy, amongst other things. And there are several other organizations as well who, from time immemorial, have been engaged in advocacy. A lot has been said.
Yes.
A lot continues to be said. Is advocacy still relevant? Does this still have a place, a role in the development of the Niger-Delta?
Okay.
Do people still listen? Are they still concerned? Or are they just concerned about Burna Boy and the Chief Priest?
How old is United Nations? About 75, 26 years old, have been? Is it still relevant? Yeah. The last TEDx talk we had in TEDx Port Harcourt I spoke. And I said that advocacy in the way we grew up with it, inherited and grew up with it, it's not feasible where you have weak public institutions, where the rule of law is not obeyed. That's where that question that you just asked me, are they listening? So for instance, Nigerian Labour Congress, let's take them for instance. So you see them whenever there's a spike in fuel, petrol costs, they come on the air and they talk about we need to increase salaries, this and that. But imagine that, and when you see the officials, all of them drive SUVs, the top officials, bulletproof. So funding is not a problem. Imagine that the NLC, for instance, I'm going somewhere, for instance, come on air, and they're there with Rwanda Bismarck, Deloitte, experts from Deloitte, that they have commissioned, that they want to compel an increase in salary, but they're giving you clear economic indices paid for. I don't know if for it to be researched. Do you understand? And saying that, yes, government, I realize that because of the subsidy, the impact on the dollar and this and that and that and that, we based on our research findings, that you can raise money if you block here, block that, cut this, do ABC. It means that advocacy now is going to come from a position of strength. You must adapt to your environment. So advocacy in its old format achieved nothing. Advocacy in contemporary format. After we did the Stop the Suit campaign, we went to court. I got signatures, went to court. We petitioned the UN World Health Organization. We went to court because Nigeria is a signatory to the right to a clean environment. So we went to court, and Nigeria domesticated that law. So beyond the talk and the walk and the picketing, we need to compel action, particularly in these times.
You spoke about leadership earlier on in the course of this conversation.
Yes, please.
And specifically speaking to leadership in the Niger-Delta.
Yes, please. What
impact can effective leadership have on the development of the Niger-Delta region?
That's the bomb. Like I said, that if the leadership begins to have right conversations, and they become and control the narrative around those conversations, you find that things will begin to change. For instance, if I raise up an issue and we start talking, imagine if the governor of Rivers State begins to talk about there's going to be a $300 million compensation from Shell, and everybody becomes, for, say, Diop, everybody in Diop will become interested. Yes. So we need to go beyond those kind of mundane conversations and begin to say, look, like I have been asking, the Extra Step Initiative, we've been saying that 60 days after from when oil was found, it is time for us to conduct an environmental audit of the people who live here and of the people who live in the Niger Delta and of the environment. The reason is not to antagonize the IOCs. And please do not wait for the IOCs to do it. We, as pressure groups, cultural groups, ethnic groups, community groups, can say, okay, let's partner with the Nigerian Environmental Society, NESDRA, and the IOCs. Can we find out what has happened here and what is happening there? And what are the consequences of this thing on us now and in the future? And because if you remember, when things really went bad in Niger, there were militancy and so on, you find out you can't go fishing. If you go, you might be kidnapped. Your engine will be stolen. If you go farming, you can be kidnapped. All of this impact the community. So everybody moves from the hinterlands to the city center because they want to seek for jobs and source of income to live. So leadership is very important. We have chiefs, we have youth leaders, we have community development leaders. We have everything you want to look for in the world that is supposed to compel development are available. So we need to join the dots together and change the conversation and the narrative so that the narrative will be development prone. The narrative will stop being mediocre. It should stop being about rudimentary issues. It should be about the future. Where do we want to? Where are our peers? Where is the world going to? The world is doing STEM. The world is going AI, Internet of Things, and so on. The world is looking towards clean energy, fossil fuel, and the fossil fuel is being de-emphasized, or it hasn't been, but like people are looking for alternatives. So shouldn't we be looking in that direction? Yeah, so it's a deliberate thing if you don't do it. Just as the traders took mandates from the crown to come and explore, to look for food, for tea, for spices, for alternatives to drive their economies back in Europe. And these are people who face extreme weathers. You don't have that. Look at what's happening in California, in Los Angeles now. Imagine that happening in Nigeria. The people in Tokyo they grow up with earthquakes. They haven't run away. Instead, they've adjusted their buildings to sway to the adjustments of the earth whenever it happens, to the tremors when they come. Today, if you follow on the major networks, people are asking questions. Why did the fires happen? What happened to water? We know there's droughts. Last 2024 was the hottest year in our existence and so on. Well, what of manpower, firefighters, equipment? People are asking those questions. Here we have, I think our greatest problem was God giving us this clement weather. You know, if we were in Libya, in the Middle East, or we're in Russia, in Cooks, or Canada, if there's no power here, we can't sit here, you know. So your existence is deliberate. What you want, how you want it, must come from a concerted, deliberate action.
Speaking of concerted, deliberate actions, or as you put it earlier, joining the dots, what specific actions should we be taking as Niger-Deltans or in the Niger Delta to bring about that development?
One of them is happening here, Canvas. I think it should be expanded. I think you should be on all radio stations. I think I would recommend that your budget be enlarged so that you're on Google. So as you log on, those adverts you see, I should be seeing the Canvas. And the reason is so that we can get our 60% of our population interested in these conversations. And when we show them the problems, we're not showing you the problem to scare you. We're showing the problems because we want you to see the opportunities in those problems. Come to Pastor Biomia, every problem, if you solve any problem in society, it puts food on your table and enables you to rise on the food chain. So we make them, we show them where, we teach them to have the conversation, to be able to identify their situation, the problems, and see the opportunities in those problems. That if you overcome those problems, these are the opportunities, or these are the derivatives that will impact you. So imagine that we have the canvas being expanded, like what TEDx is doing, and expanded. Even those in diaspora will get involved. And beyond this, they begin to have small town hall meetings and so on. These are the kind of conversations. And I don't know, the other one might need a spiritual perspective, which is getting the public officers, the office holders, to have the conversation without coming to show off. That sit down to debate that this is my budget. I sat down in this local government X. I went round. Are you aware that there are communities in the Niger-Delta that government officials have never been to since their creation in 1967? Yeah, I can name some, but I won't do that. So that I will not be labeled partisan. So it's a deliberate, and then for the cultural groups which are so influential, like the John National Congress, the Ekpaya group, what's that, Obako Equere and so on. They can sit down, the Che group, the Omuma people, the Ekpaya people, and we're in a new year. How many are we? How many houses do we have? What are we going to? Yes, the government has announced a budget. Can we follow up with them and find out what did they provide for us? Now, what they provided for us, is it adequate to what we need? We don't want to do the project, but we want to achieve. We want to compel you because you're working for us to do what is necessary. But now the people are blaming the devil. Because when you ask them, they said the Bible says pray for those in authority. But they forget to tell you that the Bible did not say bless those in authority. So I have told them, stop worrying the devil. He has applied to leave Nigeria. Convert your prayers to compel those you have employed to do that which you expect them to do to meet your needs. Stop passing the buck.
We have to wrap this up shortly. And finally, and as briefly as possible, please, what is your vision for the Niger-Delta?
Like I've said that I want to see a Niger-Delta where the average young person understands his history, where we're coming from, what errors, what mistakes we have made, and for us to take responsibility that it is us that must drive the change, whether it be in relation with the IOCs, whether it be in relations with local government, public officials. It is our responsibility as employers and owners of the Commonwealth. We must stop shaking our responsibility and hoping for people to come from Mars today. Nobody's going to do that for us.
And that's a wrap. On this edition of Canvas, the Niger-Delta Roundtable, we have discussed Niger-Deltans Can Develop Niger-Delta. And my guest, Executive Director, Extra Steps Initiative, Eugene Abels. Eugene, always a pleasure. It's been a delight having you.
Nice seeing you again. Thank you.
And I do hope that vision of yours becomes a reality very soon.
Big amen.
I'm Adedayo Lushagin. Thanks for joining us on this edition of Canvas and Niger-Delta Roundtable, brought to you by SPDC. Catch the podcast on various social media platforms. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of the day. And remember, Niger-Deltans can develop the Niger-Delta. Bye for now.